Hello, Facebook fans and YouTube fans of DX Engineering. It's Thursday afternoon here in the Eastern time zone of the USA. It's time for the Manufacturer Showcase. And if you haven't heard me tell before, we represent over 160 different manufacturers of equipment that is focused on amateur radio. And today we're going to talk about Ciro Mazzoni, and it's our very own DX engineering experts, Rod, K8RR, and Ed, K8IV. Hello, Rod and Ed.
Hi, Tim. How you doing?
Good, good. So, what do you guys got there? What's going on? It looks like a mini antenna.
Well, sure. The Ciro Mazzoni company makes loop antennas by I3 VHF, and this behind us is the baby loop. It's one of three main antennas that the Ciro Mazzoni company makes for the amateur radio market. And we're going to demonstrate this in just a moment, but I want to first take a moment to say, Ed, thanks for being with me here today.
Thank you.
You know, it's really great to get together after a long time of not being able to get together. So this is fun to be able to do a live demonstration. We're going to first talk about the three different antennas that Ciro Mazzoni has. The biggest one, which is twice as big as the one behind us, is called the MIDI. And that one is about 2 meters in diameter.
Yes.
And this magnetic loop is the baby. And then there's a small one called the Stealth. And it looks more like a sculpture than a loop antenna because it's angular. It's not actually a round loop.
Yeah. So yep. And Katie, take Rod and Ed full screen too, because we want to get in on all the action. So go ahead, Rod.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Tim. And all three of those antennas, we actually probably should have thrown them up on the screen, but well, they're on the DX Engineering website. And all three of them work with this nifty little device behind me. This is called the ATU 2.0. But it's not really an antenna tuner. It's an antenna controller, and we're going to talk about that now. So, did you have anything to add, Tim?
No. Go ahead, Rod. You're on a roll.
Okay. So how does this system work? This antenna controller, what does it do to tell that loop how to play?
Okay, so basically it's similar to any antenna analyzer. It basically sends a signal out to the loop itself, and it has an actuator. There's a motor right in the middle that causes the loop to expand, contract. At the same time, see the large square box at the top. Really, it's not a box. There's multiple interleaved plates. They're the capacitor. So as it opens, the capacitor becomes less and less capacitance, and that's where you end up with a higher and higher frequency. And this particular loop operates from 40 meters to 10 meters and anywhere in between. And so the analyzer goes out, it looks what the SWR is at, and it moves the loop to match, where it needs to be in frequency.
Okay, so let's show the controller, and we'll go to the other camera here, and we'll zoom in here with the other camera on the controller. There we go. And there's the keypad that comes with it. And you can manually operate the controller with the keypad. And Ed's going to show us the setup procedure.
Okay. You can hold on the keypad, you can hold in the minus sign. Okay, and it says set auto mode. Select one more, set antenna type. And so this is when you first set the loop up, regardless of whether it's a MIDI or whether it's a baby like this one. you basically hit enter, okay, and you do auto detect. And if you watch the loop,
It's now moving all the way out to the end of its travel to test where it needs to be.
and at the same time, it
All
also
the way back
determines
to the beginning.
the polarity of the DC going out to the actuator motor.
Yeah, I did mean when I did it. Yeah. Yeah, there we go. Okay. So now it says the motor's okay. And then what did you press?
I didn't press anything, it's still finishing
Okay,
up.
it's-
It's actually going to auto tune. It's detecting which radio is out there,
Okay.
and it follows the radio and frequency.
Okay, so now the optional interface cable is connected by the CAT, the RS-232.
Right, and so it follows the radio as the radio changes in frequency.
Okay, so go ahead and change the radio to a different frequency, and then the controller retunes the antenna to that frequency. It reads by RS-232.
Yes,
If you have an ICOM radio, it'll read by CIV.
right.
And if it happens to be a
Kenwood.
it's COM port.
Series,
Yaesu, it's CAT port. Okay. All right.
So we can actually go to, choose whether it's in what type of auto mode. In this case, we set it for full auto so that as you change frequency, you change bands, it follows that.
Let's do that right now.
Okay.
Go ahead and change the band on the radio. Or
Let's. Okay.
oh yeah, you were showing CAT mode.
CAT mode 3, and then it'll ask for the baud rate. We have to set the radio set up for 4800, and now also the actual ATU also, and you can change that.
Yep.
Okay,
So
we saved it.
So the ATU will automatically determine what baud you set on your radio. Okay, now we see that the antenna and the controller is set to 40 meters. Let's go to a different band. Okay, so now the unit knows that it's changing to a different frequency, and it already beat my camera and it opened up the loop to tune to this frequency.
Oh, it's
It's
still.
it's retuning because you changed it to a different band.
Yeah, let me go.
Okay, there we go. Now you changed to 10 meters.
Yeah, I just want
It
to
knows
see.
it by CAT, and now it opened up all the way.
Go back to 40 meters.
And now we're going to go back to 40. We'll watch it go back. All right. Ed, how much power does this magnetic loop transmitting
Okay.
loop?
I like to say 450 watts.
Okay.
You can go to 1,000 watts above 22 megahertz up to 10, but I guess I'm more comfortable thinking about 450 watts. Now, the other thing you have to consider is if you do add an amplifier, you have to put it on the lee side, on the far side of the ATU.
Between the automatic tuner unit and the antenna,
That's correct.
you cannot put more than 200 watts from the radio into the tuner unit. Now, very important point. When using this type of antenna system, you cannot transmit while the unit is tuning.
That's right. So if either LED is lit, or either the tuning or the motor are lit, you cannot transmit because you'll damage the ATU. Another thing to keep in mind is you cannot use an auto tuner in the radio, and if you add an amplifier down, on the output of the downstream,
Yep.
It cannot have an auto tuner either. It'll basically just confuse the
Right.
ATU itself.
Right, you're only using the antenna as tuning. So that's pretty much it. Now, of course, the hookup is pretty simple, really. The only thing
Very.
that you have from the antenna tuner unit out to the loop antenna, which would normally be placed outside, the baby 5 to 8 feet above the ground,
Right.
and it needs to have the ground there to work properly.
Correct, right.
The MIDI is typically 8 to 13 feet above the ground, and the Stealth is a special type of loop that is going to be set on a metal table, on a metal vehicle,
Right.
or on the earth, or a
Correct.
piece of sheet metal or screen.
So Rod, can we tell our viewers, what kind of success do you have with an antenna? I mean, this is really a very small antenna for HF. So what kind of success can you expect?
Of course, any small antenna is going to be a compromise as compared to a full-size radiator. But the magnetic antennas are special in the fact that they aren't affected by their surroundings as much as a regular wire or metal antenna.
Right. Matter of fact, we use it actually here inside the warehouse, but there's tons and tons of aluminum, tons and tons of steel. It's amazing that you can actually operate or use it at all in here. It's just unbelievable. Whereas if I took a standard dipole and set it up, you'd hear nothing but noise inside this warehouse with all the electronics.
Right. And Ed, in your experience with customers, and I mean, any problems with this? I mean, any issues?
On occasion, because people don't always follow all of the instructions, and so they try to locate them maybe not in the most opportune place. We've had very few other issues, and on occasion it's usually set up, and the crazy thing is you get somebody that just doesn't want to move it, so you bring the ATU back, we test it, and this is what we have this loop here for. We test the ATU, and majority of the time there's absolutely nothing wrong. And so you say, well, maybe you need to move it, or I can't. Then they say, well, I can't move it. Well, they're not willing to give it up. No matter what you got to do, you got to help them get it going, regardless of what they're doing. They won't give them up. So I mean, and we're not talking one or two people. I mean, it's
right. So
there's a lot of people that use these in compromised situations. They'll have to put it in a garage attic where there isn't a bunch of metal around it, and then they put a piece of metal or some screen under it so that it'll work right. And it does a really nice job for them in an HOA or CC situation.
Yes.
I was about to mention that the hookup is simple with one 2-conductor cable. It's typically like 18 gauge or 16 gauge.
It depends how far away. It's as much as probably 12 gauge.
Depending on how far away.
Just 2 wires.
So then a regular coax from the ATU out to the.
And if you want to add a rotor, which I definitely recommend, then of course the rotor cable, but that's unrelated to the system.
That's actually a very important thing to mention, Tim. This is the type of antenna you wouldn't think it, but because it has a gamma match on it, it is somewhat directional, and it's very deep null off the sides of the loop. So you really have to make plans to install it with a rotator.
Good. Let's take a look at the chat here, Rod, and see who all is on. W8 Victor India Papa is on. KO4 Alpha Fox Lima is on. Whiskey 1 Quebec Papa is on. And Victor Alpha 2 Hotel Echo Tango from Quebec. And from Italy, it's India Kilo 1 Zulu Oscar Delta. And Jan likes this loop. And November Radio 2 Charlie is on from Western New York. You guys have viewers from all over the place. Papa Echo 2 Kilo. And Sierra Mazzoni is on. India 3 Victor Hotel Fox is on and watching you guys. And of course, our very own Jeff, KB8ZWT, is on as well. And great to have you along, Jeff. And let's see, November Whiskey 7 Uniform Sierra from Ohio, and Whiskey Alpha 1 Alpha Alpha Alpha. And he says he has a MIDI and a baby loop, and he loves them both. And from Denmark, it's Oscar Zulu 1 Delta Whiskey X-Ray. And then over in the UK, it's 2 Echo 0 Radio Echo Echo. And we have from South Africa, Zulu Sierra 1 Delta X-ray is on, Chris. And let's see, who else do we have on here? Rod, you want to talk about the pricing for this antenna? There's a question in the chat about pricing.
Sure. This is an item that you could consider this antenna to be similar to a high-end Yagi. They're priced in the thousands and 2000s because of the materials that are used, because of how incredible this antenna tuner unit is. It's a controller unit, and it's actually like a high-end analyzer that's sending out a signal to determine how long to run the motor to get it tuned exactly right. With the quality level of this antenna and the fact that you have this incredible antenna tuning unit that comes with it, the price may seem high, but it's actually worth it for folks that have a limited antenna situation, without a question.
Yeah, the construction quality of the loops are just unbelievable. I mean, they're just extremely well made.
Yeah,
and we're really proud to be the exclusive rep here at DX Engineering, and the folks at Ciro Mazzoni are really great to work with. Ed and I love talking with Viviana and her brother and of course her father, who started the company. They're all great people, and we're just tickled to have these antennas here.
Tech support is absolutely fantastic. I mean, it probably doesn't go by a day or two that I don't have something I run by Viviana, and she immediately gets back to me. It just goes very well. We actually share information back and forth with customers. She may be working with the customer, and then I end up working with that customer, or vice versa. And it goes really well.
Well, that's great. And, coming from you, Ed, that the customer service, that's always the thing that, people say, geez, I'm going to invest a lot of money in this antenna, and I want to make sure that, it's going to work, and it's going to be, around for several years. And so that is so great to hear. We also have on from Denmark, another Oscar Zulu 4 Papa Alpha Tango is on, and Whiskey Alpha 4 Mike Oscar Mike out in Kentucky is on. And Arthur says, does it work outside of the HF spectrum? How do you, Rod?
No, this particular model, the baby, it operates from 40 through 10 meters.
10 meters, that's correct.
And the MIDI loop operates from 80 through 20 meters, and then the stealth is
virtually the same as the
about
mini,
the same
the
as
mini, I mean the baby.
It's the same as the baby, right? 40 through 10. But because of its size, it's limited for 40 meters, and it does much better up on 20 and above. And somebody asked me to go stand by the antenna so that they can get a feel for how big it is. So I'm going to do that. And because a lot of people don't really realize that it's a meter, right? I mean,
exactly.
a little greater than 3 feet.
Right.
And this is the pivot point. This is the control wire going up to the actuator. And these two halves are made at the same time as a whole.
Yep.
And then it's cut, and then the capacitor plates are welded on the top.
Correct.
And the bottom of the loops are welded onto the plates at the bottom. So this pivot point, a gamma match. So it's a substantial antenna. I mean, this is very large diameter material.
Assembly is reasonably simple. Majority of it is actually assembled, and just a few bolts to first of all assemble it to the mast mount, and then a few bolts for holding that stainless steel strap you see that basically connects both sides of the loop, and then one bolt for the actuator, and that's pretty much it. it comes in a box, 2 halves.
Right.
So we have some more from the chat room. It says, "Hi, I am Pop Alpha 3 Bravo Oscar from the Netherlands. I have my baby loop for 7 years and working great, and working DX. He's very happy with it." And so another question here, Rod, is what's the size difference and the reception difference between the baby loop and the full size loop?
Well, it depends on what you mean by a full-size loop. I mean, if you're talking about an HF full wave loop that's outdoors, that would be like talking about, grapefruit and raisins. I mean, you can't really compare a full-size antenna with a small loop. Now, of course, on a great big full-size antenna, you may have higher efficiency and higher results for transmitting, but it's not necessary to have great results on receive. And these magnetic loops, because of their size and because of the way they operate magnetically more than electrically,
The fact that you can steer them.
and you have a directive pattern, it's extremely quiet, and it makes for a much better receiving antenna for a multi-purpose situation when you don't have acreage. And there are so many hams nowadays that just don't have acreage. They have a small yard. The guys over the UK talk about the gardens, I mean, we're talking about a tiny little yard that this can fit in the back and work really well.
Some of the customers have actually painted them to camouflage them, and actually we have, I guess, a version that's already camouflaged, but folks have been painting them themselves.
And so, when it comes to an HOA or a small lot, this can really be good. And Dino, Kilo Lima Zero Sierra, says that loops work pretty well and can be used for parks on the air and summits on the air. And you just have to be careful with it. And Germany 6 Juliet Mike X-Ray, he has a baby loop, and I think he likes it. And we've got,
of course,
Kilo Golf 5 Uniform Mike India is on, and Delta Lima 6 Kilo Alpha, and Corey W3 Juliet Lima looking good, Ed and Rod.
Thanks,
he's
boss.
he's just around the corner.
Corey is one of our great managers here at DX Engineering, and Corey, always great to have you on. And Alpha Bravo 7 Kilo Tango from Puerto Rico, Kilo Papa 4 Quebec, Victor Quebec, over to Spain, Echo Alpha 3 Echo Alpha Juliet is on, and back to Germany, Delta Lima 2 Kilo Bravo Juliet, Whiskey Alpha 8 Oscar Mike, and Kilo Charlie 2 Quebec Lima Juliet up in Rochester, New York. Let's see, Skip Longpath. We did, Rod did go by the antenna to see how long it is.
Yeah, that was Skip that asked me to do that.
Thank you, Skip. And let's see, Kilo Golf 2 Juliet Whiskey. Can you make a loop antenna 80 meters to 10 meters? So
no, actually, that's not possible. Not this type of antenna. For transmitting purposes, it's just not possible to make one that's large enough to work on 80 meters, but then small enough to work on 10. You just can't get the right tuning. And so the 3 octaves is the way that Ciro Mazzoni put it, can't be accomplished on this type of magnetic loop antenna.
That's why folks buy 2.
That's right.
Yep.
There's the MIDI for 80 through 20 and the baby for 40 through 10.
Okay. And so Echo Alpha 3 Echo Alpha Juliet asks, how does the antenna work on the railing of a balcony with other floors above?
That's a tough spot because in that situation, the loop might be too close to the metal of the railing, and it might be too close. The capacitor at the top might be too close to a rebar and a cement ceiling above. So there are some situations where that can work, and there are some that it cannot.
We had a customer that actually put it on I guess it's a deck of some sort, and it worked well in most directions, but sometimes he rotated a little bit and he couldn't get it to tune. But
Yeah,
he was happy with it. He used it as it was. I mean, that was his choice where he had to put it.
there are going to be some situations that you would hope that it would work, and it may not because of the proximate. I mean, even though these loops are insensitive to surrounding metal, you can't have them closer than 6 feet to other metal.
Yep. So, Ed, Rod, thanks so much for being here today. Kate Ivy, Kate RR, two of our great employees for DX Engineering, sales team, technical team. You guys are the best. And thanks so much for describing Ciro Mazzoni, who is one of our great manufacturers. And Ed, Rod, thanks so much.
Oh,
Thanks a lot for having
Thanks.
us. This was a lot of fun.
All right. Get back to work, guys.
This is not work.
No, this was more.
73 from DX Engineering. We'll see you on Tuesday.
Bye.